My name is Caleb Whitaker. I'm 32 years old. 5 days before Thanksgiving. My mother called to tell me not to come. Not because of a fight. Not because I'd done anything wrong. Because my older brother, Andrew, asked her to uninvite me. He said my job would embarrass him in front of his new girlfriend. I run a construction company. I build custom homes. I manage crews. I'm on site by 6:00 am. Steel-toed boots in gravel. Dust in the air. Framing going up against the Colorado sky. Most days I smell like pine and concrete by noon. Andrew works in corporate finance in downtown Denver. Corner office. Tailored suits. Words like asset allocation and risk mitigation. My mother said, "Carefully. You understand, don't you? It's important to Andrew. He wants to make a good impression." I let the silence stretch. Then I said, "I understand." She exhaled like I'd done her a favor. I didn't tell her what I actually do. I didn't tell her what ironwood construction has become. I didn't tell her that in 5 days, everything she thought she knew about me would crack wide open in front of 280 people. They didn't know the contractor they were ashamed of had just been nominated for Builder of the Year under 35 by the Colorado Builders Guild. And what they were about to find out wouldn't just make them regret uninviting me to Thanksgiving. It would make them realize their real mistake started 10 years ago. 10 years of Sunday dinners. 10 years of asking Andrew about bonuses, promotions, retirement matches. 10 years of asking me, "How's work?" like it was the weather. 5 days before Thanksgiving. My family decided I didn't fit the image. 5 days later, they were going to find out exactly what I'd built. And this time, they wouldn't be able to look away. The pattern started when I was 22. We were sitting at the kitchen table in my parents' house in Highlands Ranch. Same oak table we'd eaten at my whole life. My father had the Denver Post folded beside his plate. My mother was cutting pot roast. Andrew was scrolling through something on his phone. Probably market updates. "I'm not finishing my business degree," I said. "I enrolled in trade school. Construction management." My mother's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "Trade school," she repeated. Not a question. A verdict. "Carpentry. Site management. I start in January." My father leaned back in his chair. "That's hard work, Caleb. Physical work." Andrew looked up. Smirked slightly. "You're serious? You're going to swing a hammer for a living?" "I'm going to build things," I said. My mother reached across the table and squeezed my wrist. "Honey, we just want you to have stability. A professional life. Something easier." Easier. My father had spent 30 years in regional logistics for a retail chain. My mother worked in human resources for a healthcare network. They'd climbed carefully, methodically, into middle-class safety. To them, white-collar meant security, respect, climate control. "This is what I want," I said. My mother gave me that tight smile. The one that meant she'd stopped arguing but hadn't accepted it. "Well," she said finally, "we'll support you." Support, I learned, came with distance. Over the next 10 years, Sunday dinners followed the same script. "How's the firm?" my mother would ask Andrew. "Any movement on that promotion? Did they increase your 401k match? Are they sending you to Chicago for the conference?" When it was my turn, she'd look at me and say, "How's work?" Not "What are you building?" Not "How many projects?" Not "What kind of clients?" Just, "How's work?" Like asking about traffic. When I got my contractor's license at 25, I mentioned it between mashed potatoes and green beans. "That's nice," my mother said. Then she asked Andrew about his annual bonus. When I registered Ironwood Construction Group at 27 LLC, paperwork filed. $2 million in liability coverage. Wumayuan. $200 a year in premiums that made my stomach drop when I wrote the check. I told them at dinner. My father nodded. "Just be careful. Most small businesses don't make it 5 years." Andrew asked, "So you're what?" "A subcontractor. I own it," I said. He gave a non-committal shrug and went back to his phone. I stopped explaining after that. I stopped volunteering numbers. By year 5, we'd completed 54 projects. By year 7, Ibalingsan, I hired a project manager, then an estimator, then a full-time electrician and 3 carpenters. We moved from remodeling to full custom builds. Last year, Ironwood closed at $3.4 million in revenue. 19 employees on payroll. I cleared more than Andrew did at the firm, almost triple. Every Sunday, my mother still asked him about his retirement contributions. Every Sunday, she asked me, "How's work?" I'd answer, "Good." And that was it. They never asked what I was building. So I built anyway. The call came on November 18th. Thursday. Sedem 24:10. Va. M. I'd just gotten home from a site in Cherry Creek. Custom build. Steel beams going in. Electricians running rough in. 12-hour day. My jacket smelled like cut lumber and cold air. My mother's name lit up on my phone. We didn't talk on Thursdays. Hey. Mom. Her voice was careful. Controlled. The way it gets when she's about to manage something. Hi. Sweetheart. Do you have a minute? I set my keys on the counter. Sure. A pause. I could hear my father's TV faintly in the background. So, Thanksgiving. She said. We need to talk about Thanksgiving. I leaned against the kitchen island. Okay. Andrew is bringing someone this year. His girlfriend. Madison. I waited. It's the first time she's meeting the family. My mother continued. He's very serious about her. He just wants everything to go smoothly. Another pause. He asked if maybe this year it could just be immediate family. I stared at the wall. I am immediate family. I said. I know. She replied quickly. Of course you are. But he feels like he wants to make the best impression possible. Meaning silence. Longer this time. He's worried your job might be awkward to explain. The words landed flat. Not loud. Just final. My job. I repeated. He didn't mean it badly. She rushed on. Madison works in design. Her family is very traditional. Andrew's trying to present a certain image. And I don't fit it. Caleb. Don't twist it. What did he say? She hesitated. He said he didn't want her thinking we're blue collar. There it was. I looked down at my hands. Concrete dust still in the lines of my knuckles. A fresh split in the skin near my thumb from carrying treated lumber. So I'm uninvited. I said. It's just this year. She replied quickly. Next year will be different. We can do something separately. Maybe brunch. I let the silence sit between us. 10 years of Sunday dinners. 10 years of polite dismissal. 10 years of housework. You understand. Don't you? She asked softly. It's important to Andrew. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I understand. I said. Relief flooded her tone. Thank you for being mature about this. Mature. We said goodbye. I stood in my kitchen for a long minute after the call ended. The house was quiet. The furnace kicked on. Outside. The temperature had dropped into the low 40s. Streetlights flickered against bare branches. I didn't feel angry. Not loud anger. Just clarity. I had become something my family needed to hide. I took off my jacket and hung it by the door. My boots sat beneath it. Scuffed. Caked with dried mud. This is who I am. I thought. And for them. It wasn't presentable. I never told them what Ironwood had grown into. Not the contracts. Not the payroll. Not the expansion into custom builds in South Park. Not the nomination email that had come in September from the Colorado Builders Guild. They never asked. 5 days from now. 280 people would be in a ballroom downtown. And the construction worker Andrew was ashamed of would walk across a stage. They just didn't know it yet. I started Ironwood Construction Group in May of 2019. I was 27. 3 years into working as a project manager for a mid-sized builder in Aurora. I knew how to read plans. I knew how to manage subcontractors who were late and clients who were worse. I knew how to keep a job moving when permits stalled and lumber prices spiked. But I didn't want to build someone else's name. So I filed the paperwork. Registered the LLC. Secured $2 million in liability coverage. Wrote a $5,200 insurance check that made my chest tighten. I bought a used white Ford F-150 for $41,000. Paid cash. Had the logo printed small on the doors. Clean lettering. No flash. Ironwood Construction Group. At Sunday dinner. I mentioned it. I started my own company. I said. My father nodded slowly. That's a risk. My mother smiled. Just be careful. Andrew asked. You have employees? Not yet. He shrugged. Conversation moved on. Year 1 was survival. Small remodels. Kitchens. Bathrooms. Basement finishes. I worked 7 days a week. Did estimates at night. Framed during the day. Year 2. I hired my first full-time carpenter. Daniel Reyes. 44. 20 years in residential framing. Better with trim than anyone I'd seen. I told my parents. That's great. My mother said. Then she asked Andrew about a leadership track at his firm. Year 3 was the first real contract. Ibaloshermayan. 000, full home renovation in Wash Park. 1,928 brick bungalow. Original hardwood floors under 3 layers of linoleum. Knob and tube wiring. A mess. We gutted it carefully. Preserved what mattered. Updated what didn't. Finished on time. Came in 11,000 under budget. The clients cried when we handed them the keys. Referrals followed. By the end of that year, 8 employees. Imayan. $1 million in revenue. At dinner, I said. Things are going well. My father replied. Make sure you're investing properly. Andrew said. I just hit 6 figures this year. My mother beamed at him. Year 4. We moved into custom builds. I hired an estimator. A project manager. 2 more carpenters. And a licensed electrician. We broke ground on our first new build in South Park. 300,000 contract. Clean modern farmhouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Steel railings. Clients relocating from Seattle. We delivered early. Word spread. By year 5. Ironwood closed at $3. $4 million. 19 employees. An average project value of $110. Ling ling ling. This year. We're projected at $4. $1 million. Our largest active project is $410,000, historic renovation in Cherry Hills Village. Original 1,914, structure. Load-bearing brick walls. Coffered ceilings. Custom millwork recreated by hand. It's delicate work. The kind that gets noticed. In July, I brought in a designer for that project. Madison Clark. She ran a firm called Clark Studio Interiors. Referred by a supplier I trusted. I emailed her. Madison. We're starting a historic renovation in Cherry Hills. Patru Sutezicake scope. Looking for a designer who understands period-accurate restoration. Let me know if you're available to connect. Archisabad. Whitaker. She responded within 2 hours. We met on site 3 days later. She arrived in a tailored coat and ankle boots. Leather portfolio under her arm. Early 30s. Confident. Sharp. She walked the property with me. Asked about load-bearing transitions. About replicating original trim profiles instead of replacing them. I love projects like this. She said. Standing beneath exposed rafters. Good. I replied. Because it's going to take precision. We signed her contract 2 weeks later. $32,000 in design fees. Ensuite. I wore jeans. Boots. Thermal shirts. I carried a tape measure and directed crews. I didn't correct assumptions. I didn't explain titles. My email signature said Caleb Whitaker Ironwood Construction Group owner was implied. Not announced. She never asked. In early September. She mentioned casually that she'd started seeing someone. Finance. She said. Downtown. I nodded. Didn't ask his name. Professional boundaries. I didn't know she was talking about Andrew. I didn't know that when Andrew described me. He said. My brother works construction. I didn't know that when Madison heard that. She pictured someone on a crew. Not someone signing her checks. They never asked. So they never knew. And 5 days before Thanksgiving. While my family was deciding I didn't fit their image. Ironwood Construction Group was up for Builder of the Year under 35. 19 employees. 4.9 client rating. Revenue growth over 160% in 3 years. The nomination email came in September. I didn't tell them. Why would I? The math was obvious in hindsight. It just wasn't obvious to me at the time. Madison started working with Ironwood in July. She mentioned in early September that she'd started dating someone in finance. By mid-November, Andrew was serious enough about his girlfriend to bring her home for Thanksgiving. I didn't connect it. Why would I, Andrew? And I didn't talk about work. Not really. Our conversations at Sunday dinners were surface level. Politey. How's work? He'd ask. Good. I'd say. How's the firm? I'd ask. Busy. He'd reply. Then we'd move on to football or real estate prices. Madison and I were strictly professional. On site. We talked about cabinet layouts. Structural beams. Historic paint palettes. We debated whether to restore the original pocket doors or fabricate replicas. We argued about stone finishes, and won each other over with logic. We didn't talk about family. We didn't talk about personal lives beyond passing comments. The first time she mentioned him. We were standing in the future kitchen of the Cherry Hills project. Subfloor exposed. Sunlight cutting through open framing. My boyfriend's meeting my parents next month. She said casually. Flipping through finished samples. He's weirdly nervous about it. That's normal. I said. Measuring the island clearance. He keeps talking about wanting everything to be perfect. Says his family's traditional. I gave a small nod. Families are complicated. She smiled at that. Yeah. They are. I didn't ask his name. She didn't volunteer it. Professional boundaries. On November 21st, 3 days before Thanksgiving. She was back on site. We were finalizing paint tones for the upstairs bedrooms. 8 shades of white laid out on the window ledge. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. "Sorry," she said. "Andrew's excited about Thursday." The name barely registered. Andrew is a common name. I was looking at the difference between alpine frost and winter linen. He's introducing me to his parents. She continued. "Big deal for him. I'm sure it'll go fine," I said. She laughed softly. "He keeps saying he wants to make a good impression. I think he's more stressed than I am." I didn't look up. "Probably," I said. That was it. 2 days later, my mother called and told me not to come to Thanksgiving because Andrew didn't want his girlfriend thinking we were blue collar. I still didn't connect it. When you don't talk to someone, you don't build mental bridges. There was no reason for me to connect my designer to my brother's girlfriend. Different worlds. Different contexts. To Madison, I was Caleb Whitaker from Ironwood Construction. To Andrew, I was his brother who worked construction. He never mentioned my company. Never mentioned ownership. Never mentioned the scale. To her, I was a contractor she met on site twice a week. To him, I was a detail he minimized. She didn't know she was dating my brother. I didn't know my brother was dating my designer. And Andrew didn't know that the construction worker he was trying to hide was the man signing the $32,000 design contract his girlfriend had deposited. The silence made it possible. 10 years of not asking. 10 years of assuming. 10 years of reducing what I did to a single word: construction. In hindsight, the timeline lines up cleanly. July, Madison joins the Cherry Hills project. August, she starts dating Andrew. November, he brings her home for Thanksgiving. November 28, Colorado Builders Guild Annual Awards. The Grand Meridian Hotel Ballroom. 280 seats. Builder of the Year under 35. Everything converging in one room. I didn't know yet that Madison would walk in on Andrew's arm. I didn't know she'd see my name on a screen 40 feet from their table. I didn't know the look on her face would be recognition. But it was coming. And none of them were ready for it. Thanksgiving morning came cold and clear. I woke up at 5:30 out of habit. The house was quiet. No alarms. No messages. No reason to rush. Outside, Denver was still half asleep. Frost clung to the edges of the lawn. The sky was a pale gray blue. Waiting for the sun. I made coffee. Black. No sugar. Stood at the kitchen window and watched the light come up over the rooftops. Thanksgiving. And I had nowhere to be. For a moment, I considered calling a friend. Finding a bar that served turkey plates and sitting at the counter like it was any other Thursday. Instead, I put on jeans, thermal shirt, work boots. If I wasn't welcome at the table, I'd go where I was needed. I drove to the Cherry Hills site at 640 a.m. The neighborhood was silent. No trucks. No traffic. Just houses with smoke rising from chimneys and families inside starting their day. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the half-finished living room. The air smelled like cut lumber and primer. We were close to completion. Trim work left. Final electrical. Cabinet installation next week. The kind of detail phase that required patience. I turned on the portable work lights and got to it. Crown molding in the study. Sanding edges smooth. Rechecking measurements. Work has a rhythm. Measure. Cut. Fit. Adjust. It doesn't ask who you are. It doesn't care about image. It responds to precision. Around noon, I sat on the unfinished back deck and ate leftover takeout from the night before. Pad thai and spring rolls. Cold. My phone buzzed. Andrew. Happy Thanksgiving. That was it. No apology. No wish you were here. Just a sentence to clear his conscience. I stared at it for a long time. Then I locked my phone and set it face down beside me. I didn't reply. By 3 o'clock. The sun was dropping lower. The job site was quiet in a way it never is during the week. No nail guns. No saws. Just wind moving through open framing. I packed up my tools. Double-checked the locks. Turned off the lights. As I drove home, I passed houses glowing warm from inside. Through windows, I could see dining tables. Laughter. People leaning back in chairs. Plates being passed. Belonging. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt removed. Detached in a way that was almost clean. For the first time in 10 years. I wasn't sitting at that table pretending it didn't sting when my mother asked Andrew about bonuses and turned to me with housework I wasn't performing comfort. Wasn't shrinking anything to make it easier. I was free of it. That surprised me. At home, I showered. Changed into sweats. Opened my laptop. Answered emails. Reviewed next week's project schedule. Adjusted the Cherry Hills budget forecast. Work steadies things. At op cinches prezicha prom. I closed the laptop and sat back. 5 days. In 5 days. I'd be in a ballroom at the Grand Meridian Hotel. 280 people. Bank sponsors. Developers. Architects. Contractors who'd been doing this longer than I'd been alive. Andrew would be there too. He worked for one of the primary sponsors. That's how these events go. Corporate tables. Networking. Image. He wanted to make a good impression for Madison. He would. Just not the way he expected. I turned off the lights and went to bed. Not angry. Not broken. Just waiting. The Colorado Builders Guild Annual Awards were held on Tuesday, November 28th. Grand Meridian Hotel. Downtown Denver. I arrived at 6:10 p.m. The parking lot was already filling contractor trucks. Luxury sedans. Sponsor SUVs. I parked my white phone 150 inches the back row, and sat there for a moment with the engine running. I was wearing a black suit. White dress shirt. No tie. My hands looked the same. Calloused. Scar across my knuckle from a framing nail 3 years ago. I shut off the engine and stepped out. Inside. The lobby buzzed with noise. Clusters of people in suits and dresses. Laughter. Handshakes. Business cards sliding between fingers. I checked in at registration. Caleb Whitaker. The woman behind the table said. Scanning the list. She handed me a name badge. Caleb Whitaker, Ironwood Construction Group nominee. Good luck tonight. She said. I nodded. Thank you. The ballroom doors were open. Round tables draped in white linen. Burgundy centerpieces. Stage at the front with a large LED screen displaying the Guild's logo. 280 seats. I found table 14. The nominees table. 3 other finalists for Builder of the Year under 35. We shook hands. Made small talk about supply chain issues and labor shortages. Everyone pretending not to care too much. I glanced across the room. And then I saw them. Table Vince Sept. About 40 feet from the stage. Andrew in a navy suit. My mother in a dark green dress. My father stiff in a tie he probably hadn't worn since Easter. And Madison. Black cocktail dress. Hair pulled back. Leaning in as Andrew spoke. Smiling. They were here. Of course they were. Andrew's firm was a platinum sponsor. Corporate tables near the front. None of them were looking in my direction. Why would they? Dinner was served at 6:45. Overcooked chicken. Standard hotel fare. I barely tasted it. At table Vince Sept. I could see my mother laughing at something Madison said. My father nodding. Andrew looking proud. This was the image. At Chapter d'Oazech. The guild president stepped onto the stage. Good evening. Everyone. The room quieted. She thanked sponsors. When she mentioned Andrew's firm. I saw him straighten in his seat slightly. A subtle shift. Recognition matters in rooms like this. Then she said, we're starting tonight with one of our most competitive categories, Builder of the Year. Under Femog Tredive. My pulse slowed instead of quickening. The screen behind her lit up. 3 names appeared. Ethan Caldwell. Marcus Liu. Caleb Whitaker. Ironwood Construction Group. From where I sat. I had a clear line of sight to table 27. Madison saw it first. I watched her lean forward. She stared at the screen. Then down at the program in her hand. Then back at the screen. Her posture changed. She nudged Andrew. He looked annoyed at first, like she was interrupting. Then he followed her finger to the screen. Saw my name. I watched the color drain from his face. My mother noticed the shift. She looked at the screen. Saw it. Her hand went to her chest. My father leaned forward. The room kept applauding for the nominees. Table 27 had gone still. On stage. The guild president continued. This award recognizes exceptional revenue growth, craftsmanship, leadership, and community impact. A pause. She opened the envelope. This year's Builder of the Year, under 35, is Caleb Whitaker. Ironwood Construction Group. The room erupted. Applause rolled through the ballroom. A spotlight found me. I stood. My legs were steady. I walked toward the stage. 20 seconds. Maybe 30. As I passed table 27, I let myself look. My mother's champagne glass was frozen halfway to her lips. My father's expression was blank. Processing. Andrew looked like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. Madison wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Andrew. Climbing the steps to the stage felt quiet. The guild president handed me the Crystal Award. Heavy. Solid. Real. Congratulations. She said. I stepped to the microphone. 280 people watching. I kept it short. Thank you. I said. My voice didn't shake. 6 years ago. I started Ironwood with a truck. A crew of one. And a belief that good work speaks for itself. The room was silent. Today, we've completed over 100 projects. We employ 19 people. And we've proven that, if you show up early, do the work right, and respect the craft, the rest follows. A small pause. To everyone who believed in what we were building even when it wasn't visible yet, thank you. I let the line sit. Didn't look at table 27. Didn't need to. Applause rose again. I stepped back. Walked off stage. Back to table 14. Handshakes. Shoulder claps. Someone handed me a glass of champagne. My phone buzzed on the table. I flipped it over. A text from Mom. We need to talk. I turned it face down again. Not yet. Cocktail hour began at 8. People moved between tables. Conversations layered over each other. I was speaking with a developer when I saw my mother walking toward me. Fast. My father behind her. Andrew still seated. Madison standing now. The image was cracking. And this time, no one could pretend they hadn't seen it. My mother reached me first. Caleb. She said. Breath tight. We had no idea. That's correct. I replied. My father stepped forward. Why didn't you tell us about this? About the nomination? I looked at him. I did. I said. 6 years ago. I told you I started a company. My mother blinked. But this is different. What did you think I was building? I asked. My voice stayed level. A hobby, silence. Around us. People laughed. Glasses clinked. The ballroom carried on like nothing had shifted. You never asked. I said. My father opened his mouth. Then closed it. Andrew approached then. Jaw tight. Shoulders squared. Caleb. Can we talk? He glanced at our parents. Then back at me. I didn't know it was this big. You didn't want to know. That's not fair. I held his gaze. You uninvited me to Thanksgiving. His expression hardened. I was trying to make a good impression. By pretending I didn't exist. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. He ran a hand through his hair. You never talk about this stuff. You show up in boots and flannel and say 2 words all night. Because no one was listening. The words landed clean. He looked away first. Madison appeared at his side. Andrew. She said quietly. Give us a minute. He hesitated. Then stepped back toward our parents. Madison faced me. I'm sorry. She said. I didn't connect it. I didn't realize Ironwood was yours. You weren't supposed to. I replied. Her jaw tightened slightly. He told me you worked construction. That you were kind of the black sheep. I didn't react. He said you resented his success. She continued. I let a breath out through my nose. That's interesting. She held my eyes. For what it's worth. I'm done with him. That's between you and him. She nodded. You deserve that award. Thank you. She stepped back. Andrew moved toward me again. Anger simmering under embarrassment. You're really going to hold this over me? Yes. He stared at me like he expected something more. An explanation. A negotiation. There wasn't one. You were ashamed of what I do. I said quietly. That's not small. He didn't have an answer. My mother looked close to tears. My father looked smaller than I'd ever seen him. I'm leaving. I said. No one tried to stop me this time. I walked past them. Through the lobby. Out into the cold November air. The award was heavy in my hand. For 10 years. They'd treated my work like background noise. Tonight. It was impossible to ignore. The first email came 3 days later. Sunday morning. 18 a.m. I was already awake. Coffee in hand. Reviewing framing schedules for the South Park build when my phone buzzed. From Thomas Whitaker, subject: we owe you an apology. I opened it. Caleb. I've rewritten this 3 times. There isn't a version that makes us look good. We failed you. We assumed what you were building wasn't serious because it didn't look like what we understood. We never asked questions because we were afraid of the answers. Watching you walk across that stage, I realized I don't actually know what you've built. That's on me. I'm proud of you. I should have said that years ago. Dad, not Tom. Not father. Dad. I read it twice. Then I set the phone down and went back to the framing notes. At Zetcha Shapta. My mother texted. Can we talk? In person I stared at the message longer than I meant to. Then I replied Thursday. 9 a.m. Grounds and grain. She responded immediately. I'll be there. I don't know Patras et Shidoy p.m. A voicemail notification appeared. Andrew. I considered deleting it. I didn't. His voice sounded smaller than usual. Caleb. I know you don't want to hear from me. I don't blame you. I messed this up. I didn't realize how big Ironwood was. I didn't realize you were. He stopped. Restarted. I was trying to look successful. I didn't see you already were. A breath. Madison ended it. She said I showed her who I am. She's probably right. Another pause. I'm sorry. The message lasted 4 minutes. I didn't replay it. I didn't respond. Thursday morning. Grounds and grain smelled like espresso and cinnamon. Brick walls. Industrial lights. Quiet conversations. I arrived early. Black coffee. No sugar. My mother walked in at 8:59. She looked tired. Less composed than usual. Hi. She said. Morning. We sat. Silence stretched between us until she broke it. I don't know where to start. Start with why. I said. She swallowed. I thought construction meant struggle. Back pain. Instability. I thought white collar meant safety. Her voice shook slightly. I didn't understand what you were building because I never tried to. I let her talk. She explained her fear. 30 years watching corporate hierarchies. Believing respect only came in certain forms. I wanted it to be easier for you. She said. It is. I replied. She looked at me then. I didn't need you to approve. I said. I needed you to respect it. Tears filled her eyes. I do now. I studied her for a long second. I'll come to Christmas. I said finally. Her head lifted slightly. En conditions. Anything. If anyone makes a joke about my job, I leave. If anyone minimizes it, I leave. I'm not dressing differently. I'm not talking differently. I'm not shrinking it. She nodded quickly. Okay. And if you want to know about my work, I added. Ask because you care. Not because you're trying to fix something. She nodded again. We finished our coffee in under an hour. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't perfect. But it was the first time we'd talked about my work like it mattered. And that was new. That afternoon. I put it in writing. Clear. Direct. No emotion layered into it. Subject: moving forward, I'm willing to rebuild this. But it has to be different. If you want me at family events, ask at least 2 weeks in advance. Respect my answer. Even if it's no. If you want to know about my work, ask real questions. Not to check a box. I will not minimize what I do to make anyone comfortable. I won't perform success. And I won't hide it either. If that works for you. I'll see you at Christmas. Caleb, my father, replied first. Agreed. We'll do better. My mother replied 20 minutes later. Thank you for giving us another chance. Andrew sent a separate message. Can we talk? I responded. Not yet. He wrote back, I understand. We didn't speak again before Christmas. December 25th fell on a Thursday. I drove to my parents' house just before noon. Daniel sat in the passenger seat. You sure about this? He asked. No. I said. But we're going. He nodded once. We pulled into the driveway. Same house. Same porch wreath. Same truck in the street. Nothing about the exterior had changed. Inside might be different. My mother opened the door before we knocked. She hugged me first. No hesitation. Merry Christmas. She said. Merry Christmas. She turned to Daniel. You must be Daniel. I'm Laura. Please. Come in. My father stepped forward from the hallway and shook my hand. Firm. Eye contact. Good to see you. And Dadder. Insignator. Andrew stood in the living room. We made eye contact. He nodded. I nodded back. No speech. No scene. Dinner was simple. Ham. Potatoes. My aunt and uncle at the table. 7 people total. Halfway through the meal, my father cleared his throat. Caleb. How's the Cherry Hills renovation coming? I looked at him. He was waiting. Actually waiting. Good. I said. We're finishing millwork next week. Client walkthrough in January. That's the 1,914 property my mother asked. Yeah. I'd like to see it sometime. She said. If that's okay. I paused. It is. Andrew stayed mostly quiet. No jokes. No comments. No dismissals. At doi patruzet. I stood up. We're heading out. So soon? My mother asked. Yeah. We've got plans. We didn't. But leaving on my terms mattered. At the door. She hugged me again. Thank you for coming. Thank you for asking. I said. Daniel and I drove away. That went better than expected. He said. It did. It wasn't fixed. Andrew and I weren't close. My parents still didn't fully understand the scale of what I did. But they were trying. And for now, that was enough. The balance had shifted. Not because I demanded it. Because I said it. June 2026. I stood inside the frame of a new build in South Park. Hard hat on. Clipboard in hand. The last load-bearing wall was being set into place. $410,000 custom home. C8ers. Modern lines. Open floor plan. Floor-to-ceiling windows facing west. Clients relocating from Boston. They wanted light. Space. Clean execution. We broke ground in March. We were ahead of schedule. Daniel walked up beside me, adjusting his tool belt. Framers are tight on their measurements, he said. They should be, I replied. The clients arrived at 10:30 with their realtor. They walked through the skeleton of what would become their home, asking about window placement, ceiling height, electrical routing. This is going to be stunning, the wife said, standing where the living room would be. It will, I answered. As they left, I overheard the realtor tell them quietly, he's one of the best builders in Denver. Worth every dollar. I didn't react, just nodded once and went back to work. Ironwood moved into a small office space in January. 2 rooms. Glass front. My name etched discreetly beside the door. Inside, there's a conference table, a wall of framed project photos, a desk with clean lines, and on the shelf by the window, the Crystal Award, Builder of the Year under 35. It catches the afternoon light, throws small reflections across the wall. I don't look at it often. I don't need to. On a Thursday in June, my mother called at 2:12 p.m. Not Sunday. Thursday. Hey. I said. Hi. Honey. How's the South Park build coming? Framing's done. We're moving into mechanical. That's wonderful, she said. Your dad was asking about the permits. He wanted to know if we could see it sometime. I looked out the office window at traffic moving past. Yeah, I said. You can. We talked for 12 minutes. She asked real questions. About inspections. About timelines. About clients. No box checking. No polite disinterest. When we hung up, I sat there for a minute. Then I went back to work. 7 months ago, I was uninvited because they were ashamed of what I did. Now they ask when they can come see it. I used to think I was building houses. Turns out I was building proof. Proof that what I do matters. Proof that respect doesn't come from a suit. I don't need them to understand every detail. I just need them to ask. And they finally are. I locked the office at sunset. Walked to my truck. Hands resting easy on the wheel. They couldn't see it before. Now they can. And I'm still building.